I'm good. Good to see you today. Let's jump into this, guys. I'm excited today. As you can see, is the 29th of March. If you're watching this playback, this is where this is being uh, 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 recorded. So I want to just recap a couple things. This is only the second lounge that we've had, but I just want to commend you all for investing in yourself. This is the greatest investment uh, you could ever make is in yourself. I say it this way: that anytime a ground is hungry, if you see yourself as a ground, as like a field, anytime the ground is hungry, it's going to grow things. And like I said, the greatest asset you have in your life is yourself, because everything that you touch requires you, right? Everything that you impact, it's because of your touch, what you have, what you carry. I'm a believer, so I can say it this way: a believer in Jesus. That is what the Lord has put in you. And what you're doing right now is you're getting seeds planted in you, but you're also watering the seeds that maybe have already been planted. And so some of the stuff that you learned from the lounge that we dialogue about, it might not be anything super new to you, but if anything, it is creating a weekly awareness to that specific focus. And so there's something in your brainstem called RAS, reticular activating system. And it's the same thing as, for example, my wife and I just bought a new car. And it's like, before I bought that car was few far and in between. I didn't see that car anywhere. But now that I bought that car, I'm seeing it everywhere. Was there an increase of GMC Acadias? No, there was an increase of awareness, right? It's the same. So that's from the RAS inside of your brainstem. It's the same thing as if I were to ask you a question today and you're like, man, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can't recall the answer to that. It's the same thing that causes you the very next day in a random moment to, oh my goodness, I remember the answer. It's the RAS. And so it's creating major awareness. So your conscious, you could say it this way: your conscious is the captain, your subconscious is the crew. So anytime you are, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Anytime you are fostering awareness to something, that crew, your conscious, is telling that subconscious to go and find the answer or just drift closer to it while the conscious isn't at work. So the crew is working when the captain isn't. So my point is, if we talk about, like today, we're talking culture. Last week, we talked about different type of leadership essentials. And I guarantee you, those who were on the call last week, you were drifting closer to a better version of all of the focuses that we talked about. Just like today, we're talking culture. All week long, you're going to be seeing through the context, through the lens, um, through the thoughts of culture. And so this isn't necessarily at least always for giving you new items to work with, although there's going to be some of that. You're going to have moments of revelation where things are going to click for you throughout the lounge. But there's going to be also moments where you're like, I already know that, but it just created that Monday, that weekly beginning of the week awareness, so that this week I can see my leadership through that lens. So I just, again, commend you in investing in yourself. Again, you are your greatest asset. Everything that you touch will be impacted because you touched it. So you got to invest in you. You got to grow you. So this is for your weekly fill up. All right, let's just recap really quickly. Last week. All right. I'm going to run through it. We talked about who is a leader. It is one who moves someone or something forward. You're not just a manager where you're checking boxes, although that's great all in itself, but a leader doesn't just know how to manage, a leader knows how to move. We also talked about a leader is someone who serves others, who understands it's about the people. It's one who develops other leaders and not aims for more followers. A leader is someone who has influence by the way of service, not by title. Positional leadership is the lowest form of leadership. If you rely on your title, then you you lack true leadership. And I'll say it this way: biblical leadership. A leader is one who develops other leaders, not aims for more followers. I covered that already. A leader is one who jealously guards their character. They understand that character is more important than craft. You ought to sharpen your craft. You ought to develop your craft, get critique, get coaching on your craft. But all the more focus on what is inside of you, because there comes a day when your craft might become so great and so impactful and so influential that it will test your character, what lies beneath. And I've said this before many times, but you don't want to build your city, your craft, on a sinkhole. Don't build your city on a sinkhole. Okay, that's how sinkholes happen, because we put too much weight on top, and what's beneath the surface cannot hold or sustain the weight of the top. So develop your character. After all, that's what God looks at all the more, and eventually your character will reveal you. A leader is also one who is obsessed with personal growth, understands a growth mindset, that there's always room to grow, who is the CLO of their organization, the chief learning officer. A leader is one who keeps the vision in the front and mission in the heart. Again, I'll send you this link to this teaching. And we ran through that. All right, today, let's get into today. I'm so excited. I am enthused about today. This is a topic that I love to talk about. Culture. Culture matters. I could talk this all day long. What is culture? Culture is a combination of what you create and allow. So it's essentially what you see and feel when you walk into a place or when you encounter an organization. But it's a combination of what you create and allow. In other words, you got to be intentional with it. You got to be disciplined with it. Culture is intentional. Culture essentially means harvest. So if you, again, back to the agricultural analogies here, if you imagine a field, a farmer is in charge of the harvest. A leader is in charge of the culture. Culture essentially means the result of what you plant or what you don't maintain. So it's a combination of what you create and allow. It happens by design or default, right? So back to the field. Imagine a field, right? In a farmer, there is some crop that is nice, it's elegant, it's fruitful, and there's other crop over here that has been consumed by pests, by bugs, by disease. That is a combination of what the farmer has created, been intentional and disciplined and celebratory with, and then what they have allowed over here. In every organization, the culture is built up off of what is designed or what is by default. That's why you got to be intentional with culture. All right. We can get into some questions here at the end, so be sure to write those down. I love dialogue. I'm going to spend some of these lounges just taking questions. Okay. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast. You might have heard this one before, but I wrote this down. If the team is apathetic, toxic, disconnected, or the leader is apathetic, toxic, disconnected, disorganized, lacking vision, passion, etc., no matter how grand the strategy is, culture wins every single time. So no matter how detailed, I'm a strategist, man. That's what I do. I love writing out phases. That's part of one of my coaching services is I write your 30-day plan hour by hour. I mean, every little thing, what you listen to, what you cut out. I mean, I get very strategic and militant with your schedule. I put you through a boot camp. I'm not here to promote that. I'm here to just let you know I'm a strategist. But if my organization's culture isn't right, then nothing else is going to be right. Okay. So culture, I love this, will eat strategy for breakfast. No matter how good your strategy is, you got to have a good culture. I'm going to talk about how to build culture in just a minute. Okay, this is what culture is. Culture is what speaks without you necessarily speaking. It's what they see and what they feel when they get your organization, when they get your team, when they get your systems, when they get your product, when they get you. It's what they see and what they feel when they walk into the room, metaphorically, figuratively, or literally. When they walk into a room, that's culture. Okay, it's the excitement, it's the passion, it's the excellence, it's the honor, right? It's the hospitality. These are cultural items. Okay, I'm not talking culture like as far as like from a society's lens, although it's kind of the same thing because it's harvest of what's been created and allowed. I'm talking culture of your organization as a leader. So it is what speaks without you necessarily speaking. You can say all day we're a culture of honor, and we should say these type of things. We'll get into more of that in a minute. But if you're not honoring each other, you're not actually a culture of honor. You're just all lip service. You're all talk, right? If you say we're a culture of passion, but I look around and there's no passion on your team, there's no passion in you, you're not a culture of passion. There have been many organizations, even that I've been a part of, we've claimed certain cultural codes and values. We haven't put the action behind the words. Okay. So culture is what speaks without you speaking. You should be able to show up in my organization and be able to tell without me even having to say it that, man, they're passionate, or man, they're hospitable, or man, they're generous, or man, they're kind, or man, they're excellent, or man, they're organized. These are cultural items. So it goes beyond words, although we ought to say them, and we'll get into that again in just a minute. So 4 ways to build culture. 4 ways to build culture. All right. 1, be it. Oh man, this right here is so big. You got to wear it yourself. You got to be it yourself. You cannot expect the fruit from the culture you desire to happen automatically. You cannot expect your team to carry it without you carrying it, because to get biblical, all these items flow down. Okay. You cannot expect your organization, your clientele, congregation, whatever audience I'm speaking to today. You cannot expect them to be it if you are not it yourself. So, case in point, I've had pastoral friends who are frustrated that their congregation is not worshiping during a time of worship, if you understand church context. Okay. But when I look over, I don't see them passionately worshiping, right? It's hypocrisy at best. You can't expect it from others if you're not it yourself. You got to be it. And again, there is a biblical principle in how it flows down. And so if you expect your team to consistently grow, consistently learn, consistently pursue education, right? One of my daily moves in this coaching organization that I have is, I'm in a constant pursuit of education. I also expect from myself what I expect of the people who I coach and the people, my employees, right? Right now, my assistant, I got her a book on being an executive assistant, and she read it within a week or so, because she understands the culture of our organization is we got to constantly grow. I'm going to send her off to different conferences and seminars, right? Because I expect it out of her. Now she would do it already because she already carries the culture. So number one, my point is, if we expect it from others, we got to be it ourselves. We got to wear it. We got to wear culture. If we want a hospitable organization, then be hospitable. But if we want a generous organization, we got to be generous ourselves, etc. Okay. If we want people engaged, we got to be engaged. Okay. So number one, ways to build culture, just set the example. Just set the example. Be it yourself. I want you, even right now in this moment, to look at, maybe some areas of hypocrisy in your own lives. Okay. I'm even looking at my own self and be like, okay, what have I expected of others that I'm not setting the example of? I'm not setting the standard. And that's another thing too, is sometimes your organization doesn't know practically what it looks like to be passionate, right? So you're not just expecting it from them and telling them, you're also teaching them practically, how do I do that? They're going to get their picture of passion from you. They're going to get their picture of hospitality from you, because if they come from another organization, right, and you tell them to be passionate, passion in that organization might look different than passion in your organization. So you got to show them in your organization, what does passion look like? Again, to paint it, because I know I'm talking to believers and church leaders right now, specifically on this call live. But for example, passion in one church culture could be blowing the shofars, running the room. Passion in another church culture could be raising one hand. Passion in another culture could be nodding the head, right? So my point is, it looks different in different realms. And this is just a very small lane talking about church here, okay? Passion in one office looks different than passion in another office, okay? So I could really break that down, but we need to move on for time's sake. So number one, be it. I think you can pick up what I'm serving. All right, number two, coin it. Coin it. In other words, put it in a phrase that is easy to remember and reiterate. Put it in a simple phrase. I work at a church entitled Word of God Ministries, and we have what we call our 7 distinctives, basically our culture code. And we've broken down things in one word, like honor, passion, excellence, etc. The organization I worked for before here, we put it in phrases, like have a can-do attitude, right? I get to, not have to. We put it in phrases and we plastered it everywhere. Okay. Whether you put it in a phrase or a word or, whatever, some type of mantra, just make sure that you coin it so that it is easy for your people to remember, also reiterate. Okay. So put it, brand it. This used to be called brand it. So put it in an easy phrase for your people to remember. Okay. Number three, teach it. This is so important. You need to be sure that you're teaching it to your organization, to your teams. And this kind of goes with point number one. I was talking about teach what it looks like in your organization. You got to teach it. Culture, you got to teach it. You got to break it down. Teach why, teach how, etc. Man, work that thing. It should be constantly in your language, in your verbiage. In every few sentences as a leader, man, be dropping. We'll, as the staff is talking here at Word of God Ministries, we'll do things like, like I said earlier, one of our distinctives, our culture code is, honor. If something happens that is honorable, we'll just like throw in hashtag honor. And as corny as it might feel sometimes, we're just keeping that language, right, going on. So teach it. You got to break it down. Have entire nights with your teams, with your organization, that you just break it down. Post about it. Right now, that's what I'm doing on my coaching page. I'm just posting about some of these cultural items. Okay, so teach it. Number four, last one, but not least, repeat it. Repeat it. I taught on this last week when it comes to vision and mission. Culture acts the same way, that if I were to poke a hole at the bottom of this, it would slowly leak out. But if I continuously filled this cup right here, right, it wouldn't empty out. It wouldn't empty. A lot of organizations, they rely on the cup. They teach it one time and rely on this to stay full. Culture slowly leaks. And as leaders, we got to be sure that we're continuously filling this cup. In other words, repeat it. Basically repeat this cycle right here. Be it, consistently be it, coin it, right? But this one right here, teach it. You got to consistently repeat. Fill that up. If you are frustrated with, the state of culture, your status in your organization amongst your teams, You just got to go back through this list and ask yourself, am I being culture? Did I coin it? Is it simple? Is it simple for people to remember, for people to say, is it simple, or is it so another language? Have you taught it lately? Okay, you'll never run out of content to teach to your teams and teach to your clients, etc. You'll never run out of content to post on social media as long as you have these things branded or coined. And then obviously number 4, repeat it. Okay, a few different points on culture. Culture brings clarity. Culture brings clarity. When you have these things, these statements lined out, it brings clarity. People understand what you're about. Okay. Don't try to be everything at once. Now I get it, all things to all people, etc. But as far as your organization, man, have some clarity to what your culture is, who you are. It helps define who you are. Okay, culture brings clarity. Your values and convictions dictate your culture. So if you're trying to coin these phrases, right? You gotta basically sit down and write out your values, which we'll get into an entirely different values workshop one day, which I have a whole thing for that. I think it's going to be really helpful. But your values dictate your culture. So don't just say, "Oh, I think I like that culture commandment or culture code." It's got to be truly your heart's cry. It's got to be dictated by your values. And so I would sit down and just write out some of your values. This is who we are, and then maybe pull some words or phrases or some synonyms from maybe what you've written down. That's how you write out these cultural things. It could be a list of 3 or 4. It could be 10, etc. So, all right. Culture. Ask others what they feel like your values are without you telling them. This will be an indicator of your culture, your current culture or your status, the state of your culture. So ask others, new clients or members, however that translate in your context. Ask them what they feel like your culture is, like your values are. So when they walk in, maybe pull them to the side afterwards and say, okay, what are some things that you felt? Well, I felt like y'all are really just friendly. Okay, then that's part of your culture probably. Now, they're not always going to get it 100%, but it might just be, you can ask a few people, and that'll give you a general census of, what your status is. But what did you feel like, our culture is, or maybe some of our values? Oh, you really value pouring into the next generation. Okay, that can be part of our culture. You were really hospitable. Y'all held the door open for everybody. You gave away free coffee. You gave away free services, right? You're very helpful, etc. You get my point. But maybe ask others, because you can think it's going one way, but maybe it'll be the tell-all if you get a general census from new people who walked into your organization. So it's a very humbling thing to do, but it's very helpful, right? Very helpful. And so I would encourage you to ask somebody that's new, what do you think our values are here? Just by looking around, by feeling what we have to offer. It'll be an indicator of what your current culture is. And I believe this is the last one. Jealously guard culture. Oh man, jealously guard it. If especially your team members, if they do something outside of what your culture is, where you're trying to go, because culture helps set trajectory. It's like it gets you, it is one of those driving forces to get you to the vision that you feel like is in you. And so you got to jealously guard culture. I talked about last week how we need to jealously guard character. We also need to jealously guard culture. So, for example, I got Michael on the call right now. He is one of our leaders here at Word of God Ministries, the church that I serve at from week to week, that I pastor at. And if Michael it was just apathetic in all of the responsibilities that he had to do, I'd pull him to the side and be like, hey, Mike, hey, my man, that's not how we do it here. That's not how we do it here. And now Mike is always passionate, if you know him, which is why I felt like I could use him as an example. He does everything in passion, and I love that. But I would have to guard that as one of the leaders. It pull him to the side and be like, hey, that's not how we do it here. And if he's like, well, that's not really my thing, then okay, Mike, then let me help you relocate, because there's obviously not a place for you on the team here. And that's just how we do it. So it's going to come at a cost sometimes. You might have to, fire some people sometimes, unfortunately, but you have to um, jealously guard that culture. Okay. So that's that. Hope this was helpful to you. We're right at 29 minutes. Look at us. Any questions at all? I'm going to go ahead and exit the screen here. All right. Make sure that I get everybody. All right. Any questions regarding culture or just leadership? Relocate to Word of Life. That's funny. That's another church here in town. I'm sure they're doing great things. I don't know anything about them. That's funny. Junior, what's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. You talked about setting culture, and you said to ask your team. And I'm not saying, I guess one could be a team. I could ask, like, hey, what do you feel? Would that be something like, would I ask the one team or just individual people, like, hey, what do you feel when you're around me, to kind of gather up? Because I may think I'm one way, but they may view me another way. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Would you do that about yourself?
So that's almost a different thing. It's like like a mentee eval, right? You're asking people who you lead about your leadership, and that is extremely humbling. And that is something that I've done before, and that I do enjoy doing. Matter of fact, I should have done it with last semester's interns, because I know you're an alumni. But I might do it with this semester's, just regarding my how they perceive me as a leader. It's the same power, the same principle, same concept, but you wouldn't necessarily, Junior. You wouldn't necessarily. So he alluded to, those of you on this call, he alluded to the one leaders. One is what our student ministry leads. He's one of the core leaders in our student ministry, preachers and stuff, ministers in there. And so you wouldn't necessarily, to my point that I was making here, you could do this, yes, but that is more of a personal evaluation, not necessarily a cultural item. So you would ask more of maybe some students that aren't on the team, who aren't aware, who have a bias to say the Word of God Ministries 7 distinctives. Maybe those who don't quite know yet the 7 distinctives. They don't know that it's passion. So they have a natural inclination to say, oh, we're very passionate. Well, did you say that because you really feel it, or you just know that is one of our, cultural items? And so I would more of pull a few people to the side, some other students, students will tell you how it is, but you just pull them to the side, can be valuable, and be like, what do you think our values are here? And they might be like, you really put an emphasis on preaching the pure, powerful Word of God. Okay, so that's one of our cultural values then, etc. So just giving a case in point there, but maybe it would be more along the lines of pulling a newer student to the side. Maybe not somebody who, would be overwhelmed by a question like that, but just casually, a few of them. And again, you can't just, get a general, consensus from just one person. It's got to be basically in a study. You got to ask multiple, but it would be more of asking a new person, what they feel like our values are. And I know I keep using maybe a little bit interchangeably values and culture. Again, your values will dictate the culture, what people feel. So I really need to spend some time teaching on how you determine your values. it might have actually been better to teach that first before culture, but I think we can pick up what I'm serving here. Great question, Junior. I hope that helps. Okay. Mike. Mike,
So
I just
continue.
noticed that you sent that to me as a direct message. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
laugh at your statement earlier. I couldn't really tell.
No,
So people
you're
are like,
good.
what are you referring to? He shot me a message just joking around with me. There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I want to ask, 'cause, like, I know for like for you person, like, you coming from like church 1132, like to Word of God. How do you keep the same culture, but still keep it in line with the vision of the church you're in? Because you want to bring in a different culture that's contrary to the environment that's at, that's already present. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great question. The culture I came from in church, a lot of the same values, a lot of the same principles, very different methods, very different ways of doing it. So the our senior pastor here at Word of God Ministries does an incredible job at setting the example, at being it himself. And so I just really locked in, okay, what does that look like here? Because again, passion there looks a little different than passion here. And so I basically just I learned by the way of I'm still me, but I'm studying our senior pastor. Okay, how does he set the example here? You know, um, and so yeah, it's just by studying how, and you can tell the how by looking at the senior leader or the boss. And so that's a great question regarding transferring, transitioning from one organization to another. I would just basically lock into, okay, what does that look like? Now, if there are different, if some of my core values I feel like are being threatened by the way of, not being integrous, obviously that's different. Um, and at that point, you can be like, okay, well, do I really belong at an organization like this? But if it's just a different style or method, but holds the same principles and convictions, and is integrous in the way of operation, which is the situation here, then that's different. I just lock in on the method, and I'm still me without distracting the culture, without putting
Gotcha.
a dividing line in the culture. And again, you locked in on it, man, when you said, you're here to serve the vision. So I look at, okay, what does that look like here? And then I'm here to serve a vision that is not mine. And so I'm still me, but I make sure that I play the part.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Great questions, guys. All right, y'all. If there are no more, I'm going to share my screen just one more time to get a visual in front of us, and we'll wrap this up for this Monday. Let's see here. All right. Again, you can check out more resources on my site. Got some fun stuff happening here. I don't want to make these things a promo of what I have to offer, but I did just finalize my new service that I have. It's called the Executive Reset. And basically, if you are in a crazy cycle and you're not moving towards where you feel like your purpose is, and you have some success in that cycle, but you're basically just bored of the box and you want to break out and get on the trajectory, that's what the Executive Reset does. So buy this package, I help you win and be fulfilled. Also, you can check out more stuff on my Instagram here, TW Coaching. If you are, like all of you are vocational ministry or on the trajectory to be in it, I have what's called Corner Crew, and you can apply to be a part of that as well on my site. But Until then, guys, God bless you. It's 8:38, just a few minutes past my aim, but I love questions. Please spread the word about this. If you got any homies or friends or family members that could just really benefit from just a weekly leadership fill up, then please spread the word about it. Again, for the price of 1 cup of coffee a week, you can just get some community and good exhortation. All right. God bless you guys. Love y'all. Have a great day.